The story begins with Serena, a ruthless, cold-blooded assassin. In the middle of a mission, she carries out yet another killing with practiced precision. When it's over, her eyes catch on something ordinary, a loaf of bread. Seizing the chance, she takes it and eats. It has been far too long since she tasted bread that wasn't stale. Her moment doesn't last. A sudden presence makes her spin around, blade in hand, only to lower it when she sees a messenger. At this time, Serena doesn't even have a name, only a number assigned by the organization. Her next mission is unlike any before: assassinate the crown princess. According to the organization, only Serena is capable of pulling off such a dangerous task. With an empty stare, she accepts. Death doesn't frighten her. If she dies, it simply means she was too weak. She infiltrates the palace, but her mission is obstructed by a man who guards the crown prince. Serena threatens him to move aside. Instead, he smiles calmly and declares he'll protect the prince even if it costs him his life. For Serena, the idea of dying for another person is alien, absurd, but she doesn't dwell on it. Her job is only to kill. Their clash is brutal, and in the end, both fall. When Serena opens her eyes again, she is stunned. A beautiful young woman, Amaryllis, smiles down at her. Serena has been reborn as an infant, the first daughter of a powerful ducal household in the kingdom of Astra. In her past life, she was an orphan who grew up in the slums, killing to survive. Now fate has flipped, thrusting her into privilege. At first, she feels unsettled and out of place, but her assassin's discipline helps her adapt. One afternoon, while taking tea with her mother, a dog suddenly charges at them, barking wildly. Serena reacts without thinking, snatching a knife and stabbing it. Blood sprays across her clothes as the animal collapses. When she looks up, her mother and the servants stare in horror. Confused, Serena tries to explain. The dog attacked first. But her mother scolds her harshly, insisting she should never commit such cruelty. Serena frowns. Since when was defending oneself wrong? Shouldn't she be praised for quick action, not condemned for it? To her, nobles seem to live in a dreamland, blind to danger, but Serena knows how to act. She quickly apologizes, claiming it was fear and reflex. Relieved, her mother embraces her, urging her never to do such a thing again. Serena gazes blankly. Would her mother still speak those words if her own life had truly been at risk? The moment shatters when a young girl rushes into the garden calling for her dog, Bruce. She freezes at the sight of his bloody body. Serena's mother immediately apologizes and offers to take the girl in. Serena protests, wary that this child could be an infiltrator, but her mother brushes it off. A child that small couldn't possibly be a threat. Serena seethes inwardly. She herself had once used an innocent facade to lower her target's guard. What frustrates Serena most is that the dog still breathes. Even with only a kitchen knife, she should have been able to finish it. That failure means her new body is far weaker than she thought. Quietly, she resolves to begin training. Yet, the bad news continues. Her mother decides to adopt the girl, who turns out to be an orphan. Believing their meeting was destiny, she dresses the child up like a noble's daughter. The girl introduces herself shyly as Rosemary. The servants watch nervously, fearing Serena might lash out. Instead, Serena forces a smile and greets her. The servants sigh in relief, unaware of the cold calculation behind Serena's expression. Serena had been suspicious of Rosemary. The girl was an orphan who should have been struggling to survive, yet she somehow managed to care for a massive dog that was nearly impossible to maintain. Even stranger, the adults around her seemed instantly drawn to Rosemary's childish charm, showering her with attention. Serena, however, saw this as an opportunity. While others focused on Rosemary, she could train in secret. What she didn't realize was that Rosemary often watched her from afar, eyes sharp with quiet disapproval. 6 years passed. At 12, Serena spent her days honing her sword skills in the nearby forest, slowly regaining the strength she once had. But with only a kitchen knife to practice with, she lacked a proper weapon. Inside the mansion, no decent blades remained. As a former assassin, Serena knew well, nobles were constant targets, whether for politics, revenge, or ambition. A weapon was essential for survival. She couldn't understand how others entrusted their safety to anyone but themselves. Determined, she set out to find one. Dressing plainly, she walked into the city and stopped at a weapon shop. She tested a dagger, light enough for her current strength, and took it to the counter. The shopkeeper, however, waved her off, assuming she was just a child fooling around. Serena insisted, but was dismissed again. Annoyed, she hurled the dagger straight at him, the blade sinking into the wall a mere inch from his head. Pale and trembling, the old man froze as Serena's cold assassin's glare locked onto him. She demanded the blade once more. This time, he handed it over without protest, but before she could leave, another dagger came flying at her. Serena twisted aside, dodging it cleanly. A man nearby chuckled, praising her reflexes and the way she had thrown the earlier blade. Serena's expression hardened. His throw had been deliberate, aimed at her head. He was dressed as a high-ranking noble, but his smile carried something darker. Beside him stood a young woman, both radiating a chilling familiarity. Serena's instincts screamed their assassins just like her. The man introduced himself as Rick Oswald, nephew to the king, infamous, and whispered to be a shady figure. He revealed he had recognized Serena despite her disguise. It was his duty, he said, to memorize every noble face. Without wasting time, he offered her a proposition to work under him. Serena frowned, not fully understanding, but curiosity led her to follow him. Rick brought her to a hidden base, welcoming her into an underground guild of assassins he had built in secret. He claimed the guild existed to protect the kingdom from the shadows, erasing threats before they reached the throne. Then came his true request, an assassination mission. Serena's eyes widened. Rick laughed, amused at her surprise. To him, her age made her perfect. Still young, yet sharp-eyed and already skilled. Serena knew his game well, using children as weapons, just like in her past life. She didn't want to return to that world. Yet, refusing might mean letting her abilities rot, and worse, leaving her family vulnerable. Joining Rick could keep her skills alive and protect those she cared for. With payment and resources offered as well, the choice, though bitter, seemed inevitable. She agreed, reluctantly. But being the Duke's daughter meant Serena lived under constant supervision. She could not simply leave the house. Rick glanced at the quiet girl beside her, Xiā, and gave a subtle nod. Xiā slipped into a room and emerged transformed. Serena's face, manner, even voice perfectly copied. Serena stared, equal parts astonished and disbelieving. Xiā was a master of disguise, and the mana stone on her necklace was what altered her voice. She would stand in for Serena during obligations so Serena could slip away on missions. Serena still had questions. Why didn't Rick suspect her? How had she learned to kill? Rick only shrugged. Some things were better left unknown, he said, and he preferred it that way. Serena regarded him with an odd look, then hurried home. She brought Xiā with her, introducing the imposter to the mansion's rooms and staff as if rehearsing a role. A sudden cry cut through the house. Rosemary wept, convinced her adoptive father despised her for being a commoner. Master Alto tried to be strict. He claimed he disciplined the girl because she'd lacked basic education and manners expected of a duke's child. Amaryllis scolded him. She had taken the orphan in on impulse and could not bear to see the child suffer. Alto sighed that raising Rosemary properly was necessary for the family's future, but he promised to treat the girl as his own while reminding his wife that Serena was their blood. Amaryllis's soft heart made her favor the helpless. She fretted aloud that Serena's manner was strange and frightening, while Rosemary was sweet and ordinary. Perhaps that explained her attention. Serena froze, shocked for a beat, then slipped away. She was Amaryllis's daughter by birth, yes. But in her own mind, she was an assassin from the slums, a person who could never truly belong in a sheltered, perfumed life. Days later, Serena's first mission arrived. Rick handed her the papers. The target was a baron's family of 4, and when he wanted to explain the reason of assassination, Serena cut him off. She didn't care about reason. If it was a mission, she would complete it. Rick smiled and gave her the address. That night, the family gathered. A knock at the dining room door announced tea. When the lady of the house opened it, Serena's blade flashed, her throat sliced before she could scream. She crumpled, blood blooming across the threshold. Panic erupted among the remaining family. The Baron pleaded, offering any sum to spare them. Serena felt only disgust. Nobles, she thought, behaved the same as in her past life. The Baron even suggested she kill his 2 children and let him escape. He would pay for their deaths. Cold and precise, Serena asked whether that meant the Baron valued himself above his children. Then she snorted and spoke plainly. No human in this world held intrinsic value, noble or pauper, parent or king. All would die eventually. Serena raised her dagger. If such people held power, then why would the Almighty allow them to perish? The answer was simple, because they were useless. With swift precision, she slaughtered the family in mere minutes. Their corpses looked no different from the children in the slums or the carcasses of animals. In death, everyone was the same. She tossed a lit candle toward the spilled alcohol, igniting the mansion in roaring flames before slipping away. Nobles were such a strange breed, clinging to the idea that they were special. Her first mission had ended without a hitch. At the guild, Xiya greeted her and asked if anything had happened inside the mansion. She mentioned that 𝕠𝕠 had tried speaking with Serena several times, leaving the girl uneasy for troubling him. Then Rick appeared at the window, smiling as he praised her work and asked how she felt after her first mission. Serena answered with a single word, nostalgic. Rick tilted his head, puzzled. How could a 12-year-old describe such a feeling? He almost asked who Serena really was, but their agreement forbade such questions. In the end, they parted peacefully for the night. The next morning, 𝕠𝕠 prepared to leave for work abroad. Serena felt relief. Without her father around, life became easier. Yet, just before departing, 𝕠𝕠 approached her and said that if she ever wanted to speak, he would listen and do anything for his daughter. He pulled her into a tight embrace. It was warm, even unfamiliar. To her surprise, she didn't feel disgusted, though she disliked the comfort, the way it made her drop her guard. Then Rosemary whined for a hug as well, but 𝕠𝕠 only patted her head before leaving. The difference in treatment made Rosemary seethe with jealousy, her eyes burning with envy as she glared at Serena. Watching him go, Serena thought of her past. Compared to the parents she once knew, 𝕠𝕠 was far kinder. If she had no memories of her previous life, perhaps she could have lived quietly and happily with 𝕠𝕠 and Amaryllis. But that fragile thought shattered the moment Rosemary threw a tantrum, accusing Serena of stealing her necklace. The headache returned. Perhaps she would never belong in a noble's world. A maid soon claimed to have found Rosemary's necklace inside Serena's desk drawer. Amaryllis arrived, demanding an explanation. Serena stood firm, asking why everyone accused her without proof. A longtime servant named Marin stepped forward, saying, "Who else could have done it if not Lady Serena?" Calmly, Serena turned to her. Why would Marin dare interrupt a ducal family's conversation after serving them for so long? Rosemary quickly defended the maid, telling Serena not to belittle her. At once, Serena understood. Rosemary and Marin were working together. She laughed inwardly, curious how far they would go. Then her gaze sharpened. In the royal palace, a disrespectful servant would be executed on the spot. Marin flinched at her stare. Serena returned to her usual composure, stating plainly that she had not stolen the necklace. Perhaps Rosemary had placed it there herself, or ordered a servant to do so. It would be easy enough while Serena was absent from her room. She noted the pale faces of certain maids, proof enough that Rosemary already had loyal followers. Rosemary screamed in outrage, saying Serena had no right to accuse people. But that was a contradiction. Rosemary herself had been the first to accuse her. The remark struck home, leaving Rosemary embarrassed and furious. She lashed out, claiming Serena was only jealous of her, spitting hurtful words. Serena frowned, baffled. She had never envied Rosemary, nor had she ever started their quarrels. What reason would she have to be jealous or spiteful? Her calm response stunned Rosemary, who saw it as a personal insult. To her, she wasn't even worth considering, just a commoner beneath her feet. Again, the same excuse surfaced, and Serena grew more frustrated. What did this brat in front of her really want? Was she supposed to act spiteful or not? Rosemary pressed on, accusing Serena of always being a noble who looked down on commoners. With a tantrum, she added that Serena had never starved or drunk gutter water, so she couldn't possibly understand the hardships of the poor. Serena fell silent. She had already asked Rick to investigate Rosemary's background. The girl wasn't destitute. She was a simple commoner, but one loved and cared for by her parents, never having endured true suffering. Real poor children worked as soon as they could walk, while Rosemary had even been sent to school. She had never known real hunger, or the taste of filthy gutter water. Without warning, Serena seized Rosemary's hand roughly. Amaryllis shouted at her to stop, but Serena only cast a cold glance. She wouldn't kill her stepsister. Why was everyone so worried? Dragging Rosemary outside, she ignored all protests. At the front door, Serena shoved her straight into a muddy puddle. Rosemary fell face first, gagging as dirty water filled her mouth. Serena smirked. It was only leftover rainwater from yesterday. With mocking sarcasm, she told Rosemary not to vomit. It wasn't poison. If Rosemary had truly tasted gutter water before, this should be nothing. The truth was, Serena knew the taste well. She had lived through starvation, had been forced to drink it herself. Watching her stepsister covered in mud and coffin, she felt a cruel satisfaction. The next day, Serena received a mission: eliminate a nobleman. She cornered her target in dungeon basement, where he frantically unlocked a prison cell, begging someone inside for help. Before he could finish, Serena drove her blade into his heart with ease. The man collapsed, lifeless. She scoffed. Why run if death awaited anyway? Only then did she notice the prisoner, a boy, gaunt and scarred, chained to the wall. Burn marks marred his face and body, his eyes hollow and silent. A slave, Serena realized. Something about his broken figure stirred an old memory of her own pitiful past. Almost without thinking, she reached out her hand and asked if he wanted to come with her. The boy froze, stunned. Then, trembling, he grasped her hand. Serena brought him back to the guild. Rick was baffled, asking why she had done it. She only admitted she found him there, unsure herself why she hadn't left him behind. Examining him, Rick noticed his black hair and red eyes, signs of the warring tribe. He explained that the tribe was once a militant force with strength beyond human limits, until a neighboring kingdom crushed them out of fear. Survivors were enslaved and sold. The boy's shocked expression confirmed it. Serena studied him. If he came from such a tribe, why hadn't he escaped? He was even older than her, with power to spare. But the boy only looked downcast. His silence carried more than fear. It carried guilt, and said he had killed a man. When his tribe was slaughtered, he had been just a child. Chaos consumed the village as enemy soldiers stormed in. He had hidden in terror until his mother found him. Pressing a small axe into his hands, she told him to survive. Then, stepping out to distract the soldiers, she was killed before his eyes. In that moment, the boy named Tigger understood. If even his mother could die so easily, what chance did he have? Surrounded by countless enemies, he didn't fight back. He watched his friends fall one by one, too afraid to share their fate. Back then, Tigger was still a coward, sobbing behind a crumbling wall when a soldier discovered him and gave chase. In his panic, the boy swung an axe by reflex. Born with warring blood, his strike landed with deadly force, killing the man instantly. The memory blurred after that. What followed was only chains, being passed from one owner to another. Broken and resigned, Tigger chose silence, treating his fate as punishment for what he had done. Serena, however, showed no sympathy. An assassin herself, she listened with a detached expression, her nonchalantly making Rick laugh while Tigger stood bewildered. The boy finally asked, how could she live so easily after taking a life? Serena only laughed. Was it really so wrong to kill? Did clinging to hollow morals make him feel any better? Tigger froze at her bluntness. She went on. Such words belonged only to those who had never once been threatened, sheltered their entire lives behind others. In her past life, people told her the same thing. Murder is wrong. Yet, all those voices came from those living in a pretty little world, untouched by reality. In the end, she said, those people would simply lie down and die. Looking him straight in the eyes, Serena told Tigger honestly he didn't need to force himself to justify killing, nor drown himself in guilt. The truth was simple. If he hadn't killed that day, he would have been the one to die. He could take solace in that. For reasons he couldn't explain, her words lifted a weight from his heart. Rick then admitted 𝔸𝕟 was unfit for the guild for now, too untrained and unready for combat. Responsibility for the boy, he decided, would fall to Serena. And so she brought 𝔸𝕟 back to the mansion. She lied to her mother, saying he was a runaway slave she pitied and wished to keep as her personal butler. Amaryllis froze in shock at first, and Serena feared she had been careless. But her mother, naive as ever, was moved to pity. She cleaned 𝔸𝕟's wounds and accepted him warmly into the household. Serena exhaled in relief. Her mother was just gullible enough to believe the story. From then on, 𝔸𝕟's duty was to care for her. When she asked if he could read or write, he admitted he could not. Serena decided she would teach him herself on one condition: he must keep her side work and the Assassin Guild a secret. For now, she would not involve him in missions, but he still had to master self-defense and proper etiquette. It would be difficult, she knew, but she expected him to take the lessons seriously. Day by day, she drilled him in reading, writing, and the manners expected of a butler. 𝔸𝕟 proved to be an earnest boy, easy to teach. As expected of his lineage, he was a prodigy with weapons, learning with uncanny speed. Serena even hoped Rosemary might grow more diligent after seeing 𝔸𝕟's effort, but the girl only pestered the butler with foolish questions and openly badmouthed Serena in front of him. This time, however, when Serena rebuked her, Rosemary backed down. Still, Rosemary's studies lagged far behind children her age. She excused herself by claiming she was used to a commoner's life and couldn't learn so quickly, but Serena refused to accept it. She demanded Rosemary act rationally and adapt to her role as a duke's daughter. As always, Rosemary burst into tears and stormed off, no doubt to complain to Amaryllis. Watching this, 𝔸𝕟 grew unsettled. Serena was the heir, the true child. Yet somehow it was Rosemary who seemed to receive the greater share of tenderness. 𝔸𝕟 quickly realized the misunderstanding had started with Rosemary's loose tongue. He asked why Serena never tried to clear it up and instead chose to act alone. Serena only shrugged. She didn't care what people thought of her. Explaining herself felt like a waste of time. She preferred solitude, especially when it kept her away from her mother. 𝔸𝕟 studied her carefully. Serena's expression was impossible to read, a mystery from every angle. She was the Duke's daughter, yet also a trained assassin, still younger than him, but speaking with the mature composure. It was clear she felt out of place in a noble household, and that contrast only made him more curious. He wanted to understand her. He wanted to stay by her side. With a quiet smile, 𝔸𝕟 promised he would work harder, so that one day he could be useful to her. Serena didn't fully grasp what he meant, but she acknowledged him with a rare word of praise before turning back to their tasks. Several years later, Serena's long-awaited social debut finally arrived. She visited Rick with 𝔸𝕟, who had grown up and now stood proudly as her personal butler. Serena had never struggled with noble manners or etiquette, but Rosemary was another story. Her younger sister barely took her lessons seriously, and Serena could already imagine the humiliation if she embarrassed their family in front of high society. Even their tutor and Amaryllis had to beg Rosemary to behave at the upcoming party since the princes would attend. Rosemary, however, was too busy fantasizing about being chosen as a prince's fiancé, a thought that made Serena feel sick. Rick only laughed, then reminded Serena that the daughter of the Rodwell Marquis would also be present. For now, Serena was told to keep an ear open and quietly observe her. When the day of the debut party arrived, Rosemary clicked her tongue in awe at the luxurious decorations, while Serena could only pray her foolish sister would not cause trouble. Before long, a girl approached Rosemary. She introduced herself as Lady 𝔸𝕝𝕤, the very daughter Serena had been ordered to watch. 𝔸𝕝𝕤 proudly showed off her expensive silk gown, claiming her father had bought it for her. Serena frowned. The Rodwell family mainly dealt in weaponry, and in peaceful times like these, there was no way their income justified such extravagance. Suspicion crept into her mind. It was possible they were selling weapons to foreign powers. Suddenly, shrieks of excitement erupted across the hall as the princes arrived. The crowd of love-struck girls swarmed them instantly. Serena sighed in annoyance and told Rosemary to join them alone. Another noble girl, Lady Scarnet of the Jordan earldom, confronted Serena and accused her of having the nerve to ignore the princes. Serena recognized her immediately, but the girl's arrogance was unbearable. As Scarnet scolded her for not responding, Serena answered with nothing but a cold stare, increasingly irritated by the noise and the desperate fluttering around the princes. The tension was gently interrupted by a young man who stepped between them with a calm smile. Serena's eyes widened for a brief second. It was Prince Evan, and she felt certain she had seen him somewhere before. At that exact moment, Rosemary suddenly appeared behind him and rudely asked, without proper formalities, whether her sister had done something wrong. The entire hall fell silent. Even Serena felt the color drain from her face. She immediately pulled Rosemary down into a deep bow and forced her to apologize, shocked that disaster had struck so quickly. Without another word, she dragged her sister away from the party. 𝔸𝕟 was just as stunned when the two girls left so abruptly. He restrained Rosemary as she threw a tantrum, while Serena let out a tired breath. At this rate, their family would lose face in no time. Back at the mansion, Rosemary complained tearfully to her mother, accusing Serena of being antisocial and heartless. As always, Amaryllis defended Rosemary and asked Serena to compromise. Serena quickly rejected that idea. This was not about sociability. It was about Rosemary's complete lack of common sense. Rosemary argued that she had once been a commoner and was naturally still struggling. The excuse made Serena feel disgusted and furious all over again, but she forced herself to stay calm. The world was unfair, she reminded them. If Rosemary could not act like a noble, the nobles would never accept her and would always look down on her. Effort had to come from her as well. Amaryllis pleaded with Serena to overlook the incident just this once. Serena frowned and pointed out that Rosemary had just disrespected a prince. She could only hope their house would not fall into ruin because of something carelessly overlooked. The truth in her words left Amaryllis silent. Later, Serena calmed herself in her room while 𝔸𝕟 served her tea. She could not understand why her mother refused to see things from a noble's perspective, even after she had explained it clearly. 𝔸𝕟 gently suggested that perhaps she should speak more softly next time, since their relationship had always been distant. Serena could only think that family matters were far more complicated than they should be. Assassination felt much simpler. That very night, she carried out Rick's next mission. The following morning, newspapers exploded with shocking headlines. The Rodwell family had been found dead, exposed for illegally selling weapons. Given their high, noble rank, Serena understood why Rick had chosen assassination over a public trial. Shayna was spared punishment since she had known nothing and instead entered a nunnery. Serena simply shrugged. If that was the outcome, then perhaps it counted as a happy ending. 𝔸𝕟 watched his lady quietly, wondering how she could consider such an ending happy. Reconciling with Amaryllis would not be easy, but he was not worried. No matter what happened, he would always remain at Serena's side. Peace never lasted long. One evening, Amaryllis calmly announced that Rosemary had received a marriage proposal. Serena almost laughed at the thought that anyone would willingly marry a wild beast like her sister, but the amusement died instantly when her mother revealed the groom was the second prince, Heinrich. The name hit like a thunderclap. Amaryllis spoke innocently, as if this were a blessing, but Serena slammed her hand against the table. Accepting a royal proposal without careful calculation was reckless. Rosemary only smiled smugly, convinced her sister was jealous. What she failed to understand was that Heinrich's mother was a concubine with towering ambition, a woman who clearly wanted her son on the throne. The nobles were already split into three factions: the concubine side, the queen side, and those who remained neutral. Their house had stayed neutral so far. Shifting sides now, especially without their father's steady presence, would be dangerous. Serena laid out the risks clearly, but her warnings were brushed aside. The engagement went through anyway. In her room, Serena exhaled sharply. Rosemary could easily become a puppet bride, or worse, be eliminated once Heinrich secured the throne. Their entire house could collapse in the fallout. Meanwhile, in the palace, Heinrich complained bitterly to his mother. He did not want Rosemary, a former commoner. He wanted Serena, a true noble whose status would secure their future heirs. His mother dismissed the idea. She had no intention of letting her son father children with gutter blood. What she wanted was Violet House's fortune. She knew Amaryllis favored Rosemary, and her instincts told her Serena was far too intelligent. They needed a foolish girl who would be easy to control. When 𝔸𝕐 returned home and learned of the engagement, his fury shook the mansion. How could such a political betrothal be agreed upon without his consent? Yet, because it involved the royal family, it could not be undone so easily. He ordered Rosemary to keep her distance from the palace and tried to maintain balance between the nobles and the concubine faction. Then, his gaze fell on Serena, the only one he considered sensible. He asked for her help in keeping their house neutral for now. But that very night, Serena packed her belongings and told Tigr they were leaving. She felt a trace of guilt toward her father, yet she refused to drown in this mess. They leapt from her bedroom window and landed lightly beyond the brick wall. The escape ended before it truly began. Prince Evan was already waiting, greeting her as if this were a casual encounter. He asked whether she wished to go somewhere and offered to escort her. Serena maintained her composure and told him to attend to his own matters, while Tigr subtly shifted into a defensive stance. Evan replied that meeting her was precisely his intention and invited her into his carriage for a conversation. Serena and Tigr exchanged a quiet look. Killing him would have been easier if he were not a prince. Reluctantly, they stepped inside. Evan admitted he had guessed she would attempt to run away. He found it surprising, yet fascinating that a duke's daughter would leap from a window. With a smile that revealed nothing, he accurately deduced her reason was Rosemary's engagement to his foolish younger brother. Serena deflected with light laughter and asked what he wanted. She disliked him instantly. His gentle appearance masked a mind carefully sealed off from others. He asked what kind of girl Rosemary was. Serena questioned why he did not simply speak to her himself, then quickly realized the carriage was heading towards the royal palace. She confronted him directly. Was he staging this so people would see them together and assume Violet House leaned toward neutrality in the succession struggle? Evan laughed softly, praising her sharpness. He added that her eyes resembled those of a killer and that he had briefly suspected she was an assassin sent by the concubine faction. Serena forced herself not to react. She shifted the topic, stating she wanted no involvement in the succession crisis. She had already warned Rosemary and her mother. She bore no obligation to follow her house into ruin. If necessary, she would build a new life as a commoner. Evan regarded her coolly and said a duke's daughter could never truly live as a commoner, not even convincingly change her clothes. Then, he advised her to remember that if she ever needed to keep pretending to be a noble's daughter, the implication unsettled her. Did he suspect she was not what she seemed? For a fleeting second, she remembered the knight who had killed her in her previous life and how eerily similar his face had been to Evan's. The prince proposed cooperation instead, promising protection from execution if she were exposed and a reward once everything was settled. For now, she had nowhere safer than the guild. It was risky, but having a prince's guarantee held weight. Still, she demanded a written contract. Evan smiled, clearly pleased, and agreed without hesitation. At the palace, the contract was drafted swiftly. In simple terms, Serena only needed to act friendly toward Evan in public. He teased that she could go beyond acting if she wished, but Tigr's murderous glare nearly killed him where he stood. Once it was done, Tigr insisted they leave immediately. As Serena prepared to depart, Evan informed her that a royal carriage would be sent to Violet House. As Heinrich's fiancée, Rosemary would receive royal maids and knights. Rosemary basked in the attention, thrilled to feel like a princess. Serena returned to her room without a word. That indifference infuriated Rosemary. Everyone treated her better now, yet her sister remained cold. She convinced herself Serena was looking down on her. Soon after, a knock came at Rosemary's door. Marin, her maid, brought tea. Rosemary eagerly asked whether Heinrich had replied to her letters. There was nothing. They had only met once at a tea party, and all marriage discussions had passed through messengers. A sly smile spread across Rosemary's face. Now that her status surpassed her sister's, she wanted to teach Serena exactly what that meant. In his residence, Heinrich tore apart Rosemary's letters in irritation, calling her shameless. He had been trying to approach Serena instead, sending her letters that went unanswered. Serena read them with visible boredom and chose to pretend she had never seen them. Heinrich's letters grew increasingly ridiculous, expressing concern and asking to meet her. Tigr read one and immediately ripped it to shreds, disgusted. Serena knew Heinrich was a notorious womanizer, yet she could not comprehend why he would send such messages to his fiancée's sister. Then her own door opened. Marin entered with a tray of snacks, claiming Rosemary had ordered it delivered. Serena's eyes darkened. Since when had a maid hired by Violet House become Rosemary's private attendant? She glanced at the tray and hurled it straight into Marin's face. Watery soup and dry, moldy bread splattered across the floor. Whether Marin was pretending ignorance or acting boldly on purpose, Serena refused to tolerate such insult. She seized the maid by the hair and yanked hard until Maren screamed. Pulling her close, Serena asked coldly what kind of punishment she believed she deserved. The commotion quickly drew Amaryllis into Serena's room, Rosemary clinging to her side like a fragile doll. Serena merely shrugged and stated the facts. Maren had delivered filthy scraps of food under Rosemary's orders. As expected, Rosemary burst into tears, insisting she would never do such a thing. Amaryllis, always helpless against those tears, immediately apologized on her daughter's behalf. Serena's expression did not change. If Maren had acted on her own, then the punishment was simple: whipping and dismissal. Fear drained the color from Maren's face as she dropped to her knees, begging Rosemary to save her. Rosemary hesitated, clearly unwilling to dirty her hands, but eventually muttered that Serena should show kindness and spare the whip. Serena folded her arms calmly. Insulting a noble usually earned far worse. This was the bare minimum. It was not as if she intended to kill the maid. She tilted her head at Maren's stunned expression. Such punishments were common, even within the royal family. A faint laugh slipped from her lips as she remarked that the maid should be grateful she still possessed a sliver of mercy. Maren was soon shipped away, and after that, no one was eager to stand at Rosemary's side. Yet, her sister's persistence knew no limits. Before long, Serena's tea was replaced with murky mud water, and Rosemary feigned innocence with practiced ease. This time, Serena did not bother with words. She dragged Rosemary outside while ordering 𝔸𝕟 to block anyone who tried to interfere. In a scene that felt like cruel repetition, she hurled her sister straight into the muddy puddle before the mansion gates. The royal knights assigned to guard Rosemary panicked and rushed forward. Covered in filth, Rosemary screamed that Serena had dared to assault the future wife of a prince. Serena only smiled sweetly and replied that if the future princess could not tell tea from mud, then she was merely offering a practical lesson. Rosemary, shaking with fury, insisted that Prince Heinrich doted on her and would punish Serena terribly if she complained. Serena widened her eyes in exaggerated surprise at the claim. In truth, Heinrich had never visited Rosemary and showed no visible interest. Rosemary must have known that by now, yet she clung stubbornly to her fantasy. Serena brushed her hair back and coolly advised her not to cling to uncertain affections if she wished to avoid heartbreak, then walked away without looking back. Rumors spread with alarming speed. Servants began to treat Serena with caution, whispers following her down every corridor. Among the nobility, a new title attached itself to her name: the villainess who bullies the weak. Every maid in the mansion clearly avoided Serena, whispering behind her back as if she carried a disease. 𝔸𝕟 asked why she stayed silent, but Serena only thought that truth could change depending on who said it, and people always believed what they wanted to believe. One of Rosemary's assigned knights suddenly blocked her path, his face twisted with open dislike. He demanded that Serena address Rosemary properly if she did not want to regret it. Serena calmly turned it back on him, pointing out that perhaps he should worry about his own rudeness first. The knight only laughed, boasting that he served Rosemary, and that she would soon enter the royal family. From behind, 𝔸𝕟 growled, ready to strike, but Serena stopped him. The surrounding maids pretended to see nothing. Serena despised men like that, the type who acted however they pleased under the banner of the justice they believed in. She tilted her head and coldly remarked that she had not realized Rosemary and her knights were the ones holding Heinrich's leash, since the knight had implied Heinrich would overlook such disrespect. That meant he supported every threat being made. The words were deeply insulting. In a flash, the knight struck her across the face, sending her to the floor. 𝔸𝕟 was already prepared to kill him. Serena wiped the blood from her lip and looked up with such sharp hostility that the knight froze, trembling as she rose and approached him. She seized his sword, lifted it high, and drove it into the ground right beside his body, close enough that death brushed past him. In a low voice, she told him to know his place and warned that next time he would not live long enough to regret it. Another of Rosemary's knights rushed in after hearing steel clash. Seeing the blood on Serena's face, he panicked. With flawless acting, Serena claimed she had been struck over a mere rumor that she was cruel to Rosemary, presenting herself as a weak, wronged girl. The second knight scolded his companion for hitting her and drawing a blade without reason. Serena knew the first knight would never confess the truth. The shame would destroy him, and no one would believe a duke's daughter could wield a sword like that. Back in her room, 𝔸𝕟 treated her wound with clenched teeth and restrained fury. He admitted he was furious that she had been hurt. Serena did not understand. He had no obligation to keep her safe at the cost of himself. He was her butler, not her bodyguard. To her, trading a minor injury to crush an annoying insect was a fair exchange. Yet, 𝔸𝕟 gently touched her cheek and denied it. His expression was filled with worry and something close to despair. It was never about position or duty. Serena was precious to him, and that alone made her injury unacceptable. She fell silent. She did not understand the meaning of precious. Humans valued themselves above all else. Yet, in her previous life, even the knight who killed her had sacrificed himself for someone important. Why would anyone throw away their life for another? She insisted she had only made the most strategic decision. Perhaps 𝔸𝕟 thought she was stubborn, but in truth, she simply could not comprehend it. That night, the knight who had struck her wandered a deserted street, cursing Serena and swearing he would never forget the humiliation. Behind him, 𝔸𝕟 appeared in disguise. His voice was cold as he admitted Serena had told him to do nothing, but he was not satisfied with that. The knight scoffed, assuming he was facing a mere thief, proudly declaring himself a royal knight. 𝔸𝕟 did not bother replying. He reached forward with bare hands and grabbed the man's face. Within seconds, bone crumpled under his grip. The knight died easily, his face crushed beyond recognition. The next morning, the city was shaken by news of a brutal murder. The victim's face had been so completely destroyed that no one could identify him. Rick heard the gossip and laughed, casually remarking that loyal dogs like 𝔸𝕟 were truly terrifying. While Rosemary stormed off to protest to her sister for sending one of her royal knights away, Serena remained completely unbothered. She coolly replied that Rosemary should know she had no authority to dismiss a royal knight in the first place. Frustrated and unable to argue back, Rosemary fled to complain to Amaryllis instead. Not long after, 𝔸𝕟 arrived with a letter from the palace. The moment Serena read it, it felt like lightning had struck her. The next morning, Prince Evan and Heinrich would be visiting their residence. Evan's letter the day before had informed her of the visit, but seeing it confirmed made the situation far more real. Soon enough, Rosemary was clinging tightly to Heinrich, who clearly looked uncomfortable. It was not entirely her fault. He had never once come to visit or shown her any attention before. Evan let out a soft laugh and quietly remarked that Rosemary looked very passionate. Serena calmly guessed that Evan's true purpose in coming was to prevent the nobles from assuming her house had aligned itself with Heinrich. Evan smiled and admitted she was correct. Knowing his brother would visit, he had acted quickly. He then asked what Serena had done with Heinrich's previous letters. Without hesitation, she said she had destroyed them, even if it meant the messenger might be punished. Evan frowned slightly, thinking it a little too cruel. Serena replied coldly that if he wished to save the messenger, he was free to do so, but she lived only for herself. To her surprise, Evan asked whether that was also the reason she associated with Rick. He had found her presence strange, so unlike any noble that he had ordered his subordinates to investigate her. For a time, he had even suspected that the real Serena had been murdered and replaced. He laughed the idea away, saying no assassin could maintain the act of being a noble for that long. Serena felt oddly insulted by that, as if she had been dismissed as some third-rate killer. Before she could respond further, Heinrich approached her and demanded to know why she had never replied to his letters. Rosemary glared at her brother with open jealousy. She had never received a single letter from her own fiancé, so why had her sister? Serena forced a polite smile and feigned confusion, wondering how he could say such things in front of his fiancé. Heinrich immediately assumed his letters had been intercepted by Rosemary. Evan, however, reminded him to behave now that he was engaged. Heinrich defended himself by claiming he only wished to build a good relationship with his future sister-in-law, but Evan advised him to consider his fiancé's feelings first. Misunderstandings like that could damage Serena's reputation. Heinrich insisted he would never allow such a thing to happen. Evan's tone sharpened as he emphasized that people of their standing had to be careful with both words and actions. His warning extended to Rosemary as well. Starting ugly rumors based on nothing but assumptions would not end well. Rosemary acted confused, though fear flickered in her eyes. Evan calmly explained that her so-called friends were not taking her words at face value. They were merely laughing at her behind her back. Serena had not expected Evan to even know that Rosemary had been spreading malicious rumors about her among the noble daughters. Desperate to protect herself, Rosemary began to cry, accusing Evan of speaking as if she had no friends at all. Serena glanced at the prince beside her, expecting him to soften at the sight of tears. Instead, Evan simply smiled, though his gaze was cold. He described his words as friendly advice for Rosemary's future social interactions before suggesting they all sit down for tea together. The tea party that followed was nothing short of a disaster. Rosemary was determined to monopolize Heinrich's attention. Heinrich kept trying to redirect his focus to Serena, and Evan repeatedly questioned Serena as if refusing to be outdone. 𝔸𝕟 stood behind her the entire time, his mood dark and suffocating. Serena had no desire to experience such a troublesome gathering again. Yet, despite that, both princes began visiting more and more frequently until exhaustion weighed heavily on her. When she later met Rick, he was already aware of her situation. He praised her for enduring it and noted that the factions were being kept in delicate balance. For a brief moment, Serena almost forgot that Rick himself was a member of the royal family. Time continued to pass with the constant presence of the two princes and her foolish sister, and before she realized it, several years had slipped by.
In the end, Serena was accepted into the academy. 𝔸𝕟, however, was not allowed to follow her inside, and the disappointment on his face was impossible to hide. He walked Serena and Rosemary all the way to the gates, before reluctantly stopping there, watching as the two girls stepped forward into their new life. The moment they crossed the entrance, a mocking voice immediately sneered at them, looking down on them as mere commoners. When Serena turned around, she saw Skarnet standing there with a proud and arrogant expression. For a moment, Serena almost forgot who the woman was, but the memory of the tea-drinking party soon resurfaced, and she politely greeted her. Skarnet only scowled in response, before sharply asking what kind of trick Serena had used to get so close to the prince. Serena was confused, and briefly wondered if the girl had mistaken her for Rosemary. But before she could clarify anything, Skarnet simply dragged them toward the main hall. Inside, the opening ceremony soon began. Evan stood at the front, delivering a speech as the representative of the freshmen. Watching the way Skarnet stared at him with exaggerated admiration, Serena quickly realized that the girl was clearly an obsessive fan of the prince. Meanwhile, from the seats behind them, several noble students began whispering among themselves about Rosemary. They gossiped endlessly about the rumor that a commoner like her was engaged to Heinrich, even speculating about possible conspiracies behind it. Eventually, one of them called Rosemary over. At first, the girl looked genuinely happy, thinking they might want to be friends, but their interest quickly revealed itself. They only wanted to know about her relationship with Heinrich. Rosemary's expression immediately fell, because the truth was that she had never truly spoken with her own fiancé. At that exact moment, Heinrich appeared at the doorway, surrounded by several girls, as he casually chatted with them. Then, without warning, he began walking toward Rosemary. Hope instantly lit up her face. But Heinrich walked straight past her without the slightest acknowledgement, and instead called out to Serena, who was standing behind her. He treated Rosemary as if she did not exist at all, forcing Serena to call him out for it. Rosemary grit her teeth in irritation, clearly displeased. Not long after that uncomfortable moment, Serena ran into Prince Evan in the academy's back garden. Evan thanked her for scolding Heinrich earlier, then admitted with a warm smile that he was honestly happy to be attending the same school as her. Serena could only stare in confusion, not understanding what he meant. Evan continued by asking why she was standing there alone. Serena admitted that she disliked large crowds and needed some fresh air, especially when people kept staring at her. In her previous life as an assassin, she had always lived in the shadows. Evan nodded in understanding, pointing out that as nobles they were inevitably forced to become the center of attention. With a playful grin, he added that Serena would still look charming even if she had no noble title at all. That only confused her even more. Evan simply remarked that Serena had grown into a beautiful young woman, so it was only natural for people to be captivated when they saw her. Serena quickly denied it, suggesting that perhaps the attention came from the rumors surrounding her family lately. Evan laughed, teasing her for being aware of the rumors, yet completely blind to herself. His words felt unnecessarily complicated and roundabout, and Serena quickly grew annoyed. She hated conversations like this. Their exchange was suddenly interrupted when a knight rushed toward Evan, looking panicked as if he had been searching everywhere for him. Yet Evan immediately narrowed his eyes at the man. Something about the situation felt wrong, and Serena's instinct screamed at her. She shouted for Evan to move. Just in time, she grabbed him and pulled him aside as the knight suddenly drew a short dagger and lunged forward. Evan remained surprisingly composed. His suspicion had been correct. He did not recognize the knight at all, and quickly concluded that the man must be an assassin sent by a rival faction. With a frustrated sigh, he admitted he had hoped something like this would not happen inside the academy, but clearly he had been mistaken. Serena's eyes sharpened as she evaluated the attacker. To her, the man was an easy opponent. She wanted to eliminate him immediately, but doing so in front of the prince was impossible. The assassin then drew his sword and rushed straight toward her. Before he could reach her, a powerful kick slammed into his head. 𝔸𝕟 dropped down from a tree above, furious that someone had dared to harm his lady. Serena was genuinely surprised. Surrounded by so many people lately, her senses had dulled enough that she had not even noticed 𝔸𝕟's presence nearby. Letting out a small laugh, she quietly told him not to get caught. 𝔸𝕟 then turned his cold gaze toward Evan and bluntly stated that he would be the one protecting Serena. For a brief moment, the tension between the two men grew incredibly heavy, though Serena paid it little attention and simply suggested they deal with the assassin quickly. Evan decided to call for the real guards instead. Before leaving, he thanked Serena again and asked how she had managed to move so fast earlier. Serena herself was not entirely sure. Her body had simply reacted on its own, even though she had not been the one in danger. Perhaps it was a reflex triggered by sensing killing intent. She still did not fully understand it, but maybe attending this academy would help her figure it out eventually. When the actual guards finally arrived, Serena quickly ordered 𝔸𝕟 to hide before anyone noticed him. Every morning before Serena left for the academy, Amaryllis would always ask the same question. Had Rosemary already left earlier? The answer was usually yes. Rosemary had already made many friends, so she often departed together with them. Amaryllis seemed relieved each time she heard that. To her, it meant things were going smoothly. She would casually ask Serena whether she was enjoying life at the academy. Serena was not completely sure what answer her mother wanted to hear, but she still gave a small smile and said yes. For some reason, Amaryllis's expression would always turn faintly sad afterwards. That reaction left Serena confused. She had tried her best to reassure her mother, yet no matter how much Amaryllis smiled, the warmth never seemed to reach her eyes. In truth, Amaryllis could not forget the cruel words she had once spoken herself. There had been a time when she doubted whether Serena was even truly her daughter, when she admitted that standing beside the girl made her uncomfortable. From a young age, Serena had never behaved like a normal child. She had always been distant, strangely composed, and sometimes cold. What frightened Amaryllis the most was that she had never once seen Serena smile genuinely. Even now, the girl's eyes seemed to hide something dark and endless, like a quiet abyss buried beneath layers of calm politeness. Watching her daughter walk away each morning filled Amaryllis with silent tears. She could not help wondering what she had done wrong for Serena to grow into someone like this. At the academy gates, 𝔸𝕟 always parted from Serena reluctantly, promising that he would keep watching over her from a distance. Months passed, and Serena slowly grew accustomed to life at the academy. Even so, several daily annoyances refused to disappear. The first was Prince Evan. Almost every day he would somehow find her, greet her brightly, and unintentionally create a crowd around them. The prince had the audacity to tease her whenever he pleased. Serena responded with a cool and distant attitude, which often left Evan looking slightly disappointed. From afar, 𝔸𝕟 witnessed these interactions with a murderous aura simmering around him. However, even Evan was not Serena's greatest source of irritation. That title belonged to Rosemary and the small army of noble friends that constantly surrounded her. Ever since becoming engaged to Heinrich, Rosemary had grown accustomed to the luxury and prestige that came with it. The attention made it easy for her to influence the other noble students. She often behaved rudely, even toward Prince Evan himself. Serena had tried to correct her behavior more than once, but Rosemary showed no sign of caring. Instead, she proudly boasted about how she would soon marry Heinrich and become part of the royal family. At one point, she even complained to Evan, accusing Serena of being the one acting disrespectfully toward the prince. According to Rosemary, Serena was clinging to Evan because she secretly wanted to become the next queen. The accusation failed miserably. Evan's expression immediately turned sharp and cold as he stared at her. With heavy sarcasm, he remarked that it was truly shameless for Rosemary to speak to him in such a manner. Everyone present, including Rosemary, was stunned by Evan's reaction. It was only natural. The prince usually appeared gentle and kind, wearing that pleasant demeanor like a daily mask, yet now his tone was sharp and unforgiving. Evan calmly explained that once Heinrich came of age, he would be removed from the royal family and granted a separate title. Even if Heinrich and Rosemary had children, those children would never enter the line of succession. The noble students standing behind them immediately began whispering in disbelief. They were shocked that Rosemary did not even know such basic information. Soon, the whispers turned into quiet laughter. In truth, it did not matter anyway. From the beginning, Rosemary had never possessed any noble blood at all. Overwhelmed by humiliation, Rosemary burst into tears and clung to one of the nobles standing behind her. Serena could only shake her head at the embarrassing display. Evan sighed as he looked at the scene, then asked whether Rosemary had gathered such a crowd and put on this act simply to provoke 𝔸𝕟𝕠𝕠𝕕. After a moment, he apologized on behalf of his younger brother. Still, he gently pointed out that love could never be obtained through methods like this. His expression carried a strange mix of pity and something harder to define, as he advised Rosemary to be careful not to take the wrong path. As usual, none of this changed anything. 𝔸𝕠𝕠𝕗 never spared Rosemary a single glance. He continued playing around with different women, completely indifferent to the girl who claimed to be his fiancée. Serena could not understand it at all. If 𝔸𝕠𝕠𝕗's behavior had been so obvious from the beginning, why did her sister keep clinging to him so stubbornly? Could it really be love? In her previous life, many people had hired her in the name of love. Sometimes they had been betrayed. Sometimes they were simply consumed by heartbreak. The more she thought about it, the less sense it made. Why were people so obsessed with something as intangible as love? Serena frowned slightly. As far as she was concerned, people could live perfectly well without it. When Serena returned home later, Tigger immediately asked a serious question. Why had she still not gotten rid of her foolish sister? To be honest, Serena had already been tempted to kill Rosemary at least 100 times by now. The only reason she'd not done it was because Rosemary was often surrounded by others whenever those thoughts appeared. Serena had no intention of causing unnecessary chaos. Besides, their mother seemed to cherish Rosemary for some reason. The thought of killing her would only fill Serena with guilt toward Amaryllis. Tigger clicked his tongue in frustration. To him, it was obvious that Serena was the real daughter. Serena simply shrugged in response. In her eyes, Amaryllis was the one deserving sympathy for having a child like her. If she had never been reborn into this life, Serena believed Amaryllis would have a normal daughter now. A pure and innocent girl who Amaryllis could truly adore. Someone who would naturally share a warm relationship with her mother. Because of the memories she carried from her past life, Serena knew she could never become that ideal daughter. After all, she did not even understand how to love her own mother in the first place. The next day, Scarnet suddenly confronted Serena after hearing about Rosemary's disrespectful behavior toward Prince Evan. The rumors had spread quickly through the academy. Rosemary was said to be surrounded by countless male followers, despite already being engaged, and people had begun calling her a shameless woman behind her back. Serena frowned inwardly, annoyed that she had somehow been dragged into this situation as well. Scarnet crossed her arms, clearly irritated. In her opinion, Rosemary had taken advantage of her engagement far too much. She added sharply that the Violet household might be a ducal house, but in the grand scheme of things, it was not as powerful as people liked to believe. If Serena continued doing nothing about the situation, Scarnet warned that she would regret it sooner or later. Serena simply gave a calm smile and said she agreed with everything Scarnet had just said. The unexpected response immediately took the anger out of the confrontation. Scarnet relaxed slightly and no longer raised her voice. Instead, she casually remarked that she rarely ever saw 𝔸𝕠𝕗 and Rosemary together anyway. At this rate, it would not be surprising if the girl ended up getting abandoned. Scarnet even pointed out that Rosemary's behavior looked like a clumsy attempt to make 𝔸𝕠𝕗 jealous, which she openly admitted was not very noble at all. Still, she honestly hoped the situation would not spiral into something worse than it already was. Serena gazed off for a moment and quietly said that she hoped for the same outcome. Later that day in the academy courtyard, 𝔸𝕠𝕗 was once again mingling and flirting with several women around him. The scene looked exactly like it always did. Suddenly, Rosemary appeared, calling out to him with an expression full of anger and displeasure. She loudly declared that those women were not suitable for him and demanded that they leave immediately. The second prince only laughed at her outburst. He mocked the arrogance of a former commoner speaking so proudly, then casually defended the women beside him by pointing out that at least they were true aristocrats by blood. Rosemary refused to accept that. She shouted that she was the one chosen as his fiancée, and that should mean 𝔸𝕠𝕗 loved her. Her claim made 𝔸𝕠𝕗 burst into loud laughter. He could hardly believe Rosemary had actually convinced herself of such nonsense. Without hesitation, he bluntly explained that it had been his mother who selected Rosemary as his fiancée. Their marriage had always been nothing more than a political arrangement. If Rosemary had bothered to learn anything about noble society, she should have understood that from the beginning. Rosemary's face turned pale as the realization finally sank in. She understood that 𝔸𝕟𝕠𝕠 was not joking. In fact, he clearly preferred Serena over her. 𝔸𝕠𝕠 lazily raised one eyebrow and confirmed it without hesitation. From the very start, he had never liked Rosemary at all. 𝔸𝕠𝕠 then added coldly that Rosemary was inferior to Serena in every way, whether in blood, intelligence, or appearance. After saying that, he brushed past her without a second thought, roughly bumping into her as he walked by. Rosemary collapsed onto the ground, too shocked to even defend herself. From a distance, Serena had witnessed the entire scene. Standing beside her, Evan quietly asked if she should go help. Serena simply shrugged and said there was no need. Rosemary had once been a commoner, so she should be tougher than most nobles. Evan pointed out that what had been hurt was her feelings, but Serena calmly replied that hurt feelings would not kill anyone. Evan lowered his head slightly, his voice softer but firm. Serena was far too cold-hearted. She could not keep ignoring everything simply because it would not kill her. Slowly, he reached out and held her hand. With quiet sincerity, he said that if Serena were the one who got hurt, even if it was just a small scratch, he would take care of her. The words and the gesture made Serena's eyes widen in surprise. The memory of Tigor's face suddenly flashed through her mind, recalling how he had once said something very similar. She could not understand why both of them cared about things like that. Feeling uncomfortable, Serena quickly pulled her hand away and frowned, telling Evan to stop saying things she could not understand. The prince looked slightly startled by her reaction. A faint expression of disappointment and hurt crossed his face when he realized that Serena had completely missed the meaning behind his words. That night, Rosemary dreamed. In her dream, she was always the cute girl everyone loved, even the gods above. Her parents had always told her that she was special. Even after they died, she believed the gods had continued to bless her. Her new mother loved her as well, lifting her from the life of a commoner into the world of nobles. She had even become engaged to a prince. In her heart, Rosemary believed she was destined to live a happier life than anyone else. The dream suddenly shattered when 𝔸𝕠𝕠's cold expression appeared, his voice declaring that he did not love her. Rosemary woke up in panic, her face pale as she gasped for breath. Trembling, she tried to steady herself, repeating that those words had to be lies. She was loved by the gods. That had always been true. Her thoughts raced as she tried to understand when everything had gone wrong. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that she had never done anything wrong from the beginning. Then, the answer surfaced in her mind. It had to be Serena. Her expression twisted with bitter hatred as she silently cursed the girl, wishing that Serena had never existed at all. A few days later, Serena ran into Rick. The man casually asked about her recent life at the academy, speaking as if they were simply catching up. Serena then brought up the assassination attempt on Evan that had happened when the school term first began. She asked if Rick had managed to find the person behind it. Unfortunately, the assassin had escaped, and they could only narrow it down to a few possible masterminds. Even so, Rick looked completely calm about the situation. Evan was well trained and more than capable of protecting himself. Hearing that made Serena realize something she had overlooked. Thinking back, Evan had probably noticed the suspicious knight even earlier than she did that day. In truth, he might not have needed her protection at all. The next day in class, Serena opened her desk drawer and realized that her textbook had disappeared. Scarnett, who was sitting beside her, casually offered to share her notes instead. Serena frowned slightly, confused. She was certain she had brought the book with her that morning, so she could not understand how it had suddenly gone missing. During the middle of the lesson, Serena glanced out the window and noticed several male students outside in the courtyard having swordsmanship practice. The girls in the classroom quickly grew excited when they saw the two princes sparring against each other. Serena quietly watched as Evan easily broke through 𝔸𝕠𝕠's defense and knocked him to the ground. The sight only confirmed Serena's earlier suspicion that Evan never truly needed her protection. Meanwhile, the boys nearby began whispering among themselves, saying that 𝔸𝕠𝕠 could never defeat Evan, whether in academics or combat. According to them, the second prince only knew how to fool around with women. Hearing those comments, 𝔸𝕠𝕠 stormed off the training ground in frustration, while Evan watched him leave with a faintly saddened expression. Despite everything, 𝔸𝕠𝕠 had grown up under constant pressure from his mother, who had always drilled into him that he must never lose to Evan. In her eyes, 𝔸𝕠𝕠 was the one who was supposed to become the future king. Later, during the break between classes, Serena happened to notice Heinrich sitting alone in a gazebo. The moment he spotted her, his face lit up with an unusually bright smile. However, his expression quickly turned gloomy when he realized Serena had probably seen him lose to Evan earlier. Serena calmly explained that from what she'd observed, Heinrich was not actually weak. His attacks were simply too reckless and emotional. If he could control that impulsiveness, he might even win someday. Heinrich looked genuinely delighted by the praise. It seemed to be the first time anyone had ever told him something like that. With surprising enthusiasm, he even promised that next time he would try to win. The reaction only confused Serena further. She could not understand why Heinrich looked so happy over such a simple comment. When school ended for the day, Serena opened her locker and discovered that her missing notebook had returned. However, it had been completely ruined. Standing behind her, Scarnett shivered in disgust and immediately clarified that she would never do something so disgraceful. The strange incidents did not stop there. Serena's belongings began disappearing more often, only to reappear later in terrible condition. Even Scarnett grew curious about the situation and wondered if Serena had somehow offended someone badly enough to be bullied like this. Serena thought about it for a moment. Considering the rumors surrounding her lately, it was entirely possible that many people disliked her. Still, she could not immediately guess who might be responsible. Suddenly, Serena stopped walking. A heavy vase crashed down from above, smashing against the ground right in front of where Serena had been standing. She immediately looked up, her senses sharp, as she detected a clear trace of malicious intent. In the brief moment before the figure disappeared, she caught sight of a familiar silhouette running away. Serena quickly realized something important. She had not seen Rosemary for several days, which was unusual. Normally, her sister was the first person to appear whenever Serena ran into trouble, always eager to watch her struggle. Later that afternoon, Evan approached her and asked if the rumors were true, whether she had been suffering from vicious harassment recently. His expression showed genuine concern. Serena only sighed, saying that the most troublesome part was having to repeatedly repurchase her personal belongings. Evan smiled in relief, glad to see she was still calm, and offered to help if she ever needed someone to talk to. Serena rolled her eyes and coldly remarked that there was no point in showing concern when no one else was around to witness it. Evan immediately protested. His concern for her had nothing to do with their political arrangement. Serena simply asked what benefit that kind of concern would bring him. The question made Evan frown slightly. He asked whether he was not allowed to worry about her without some grand reason behind it. Serena suddenly felt a strange tightness in her chest. The way he looked at her made it seem as if she was somehow at fault for not understanding. Evan quickly apologized for letting such an unpleasant expression slip onto his face. Then he admitted that his curiosity came from the fact that Serena felt very different from other noble ladies. From the moment they first met, he had sensed a strange connection between them, almost as if they had encountered each other in some other life. Serena's eyes widened in shock. She had been thinking something similar. To her, Evan felt strangely familiar, almost like the knight who had killed her in her previous life. The thought made Serena uneasy. For a moment, she wondered if Evan might have also been reborn, just like her. The idea seemed impossible, and she forced herself to swallow the suspicion before it could grow further. When she returned home that evening, Tigor immediately reported what he had discovered after watching Rosemary all day. As expected, the culprit was her. Tigor had even found small needles that Rosemary had planted in Serena's desk. Serena was almost impressed that her sister had gone as far as dirtying her own hands to pull off such petty sabotage. After hearing the report, Serena calmly decided that she would confront Rosemary directly. As night fell, Rosemary quietly slipped back into the academy building and approached Serena's locker. She opened it and began roughly destroying the books and notes inside, tearing and crushing them with clear frustration. Suddenly, a cold voice whispered from behind her, low and chilling. Serena sarcastically asked if her sister was redecorating her belongings. Rosemary flinched violently and stumbled backward in shock, her face twisted with hatred and a hint of panic. Meanwhile, Serena simply stood there with her arms folded, watching calmly. She had caught her sister's malicious act perfectly. Serena tells Rosemary that she has already asked Tigor to investigate her little sister. Instead of calming down, Rosemary explodes in anger, shouting that Serena keeps getting in her way. Confused, Serena asks what she means, but Rosemary insists that Serena is the reason Heinrich does not love her, and admits she wishes her own sister would simply disappear. Serena pushes back, asking whether Rosemary truly believes Heinrich would return her feelings if Serena had never existed. She then lays out the truth, that the second prince only shows interest in girls of noble lineage and openly plays around, and with his behavior, he is unlikely to receive any worthwhile title after leaving the royal family. She questions whether someone like that is truly worth loving and tells Rosemary she would be better off finding someone who sees her for who she really is. Rosemary refuses to listen and suddenly lunges forward with a pair of scissors. Serena reacts instantly, blocking the attack with ease, before grabbing Rosemary by the throat. Her gaze turns cold as she states that the only reason Rosemary is still alive is for their mother's sake, and that she could kill her even now if she wished. Releasing her grip, Serena warns her to remember those words well before walking away, making it clear she will not give the same warning twice. Not long after, a girl who accidentally leaves her classroom after falling asleep notices Rosemary standing near the lockers. The sight feels unsettling, especially with the scissors still in her hand. Growing suspicious, the girl quickly checks Serena's locker and finds her belongings damaged. She quietly realizes she has found both the culprit and something far more interesting about Rosemary. The next day, she spreads what she discovered, and rumors ripple through the school. Students whisper, gossip, and even mock Rosemary openly, leaving her pale and sweating under the pressure. Meanwhile, in the garden, Serena asks 𝔸𝕟 who might have spread the story. He casually mentions seeing one of the girls from Prince Heinrich's entourage passing by and suspects she may be responsible. 𝔸𝕟 shrugs, noting that many people already disliked Rosemary for being a commoner. Serena understands that well enough, but she senses this situation is about to become troublesome. As if on cue, Heinrich's voice echoes loudly as he calls out for Rosemary. At the gazebo, a crowd has already gathered. Rosemary stands there, trembling as she faces Heinrich, who is clearly furious. Serena is present as well, uncertain of what the prince intends to do. Without hesitation, Heinrich loudly declares that he is annulling his engagement to Rosemary. Shock floods her face, her expression frozen in horror. He claims the reason is her bullying of Serena, stating that such behavior is unfit for someone engaged to a prince. Serena silently curses his foolishness, especially when Heinrich goes further and announces his intention to become engaged to her instead. Rosemary covers her mouth, struggling to hold back tears, while a knight steps forward and urges Heinrich to calm down, reminding him that the marriage was arranged between their houses and that an annulment without the king's permission would cause serious trouble. Heinrich refuses to listen and sharply orders the knight to stop protecting Rosemary, insisting that as someone sworn to the royal family, he should obey him. Then, unexpectedly, Rosemary bursts into laughter. The sound is loud and unrestrained, drawing confused looks from everyone around her. Even Heinrich is taken aback, thinking she has lost her mind. But Rosemary fires back, declaring that Heinrich himself will not remain part of the royal family for long. With a mocking tone, she shouts that despite everything, he is inferior in every way to Prince Evan. Enraged, Heinrich snatches a sword from the knight beside him and charges forward. Calling Rosemary a wretch, he raises the blade, clearly intending to strike her. Frozen in fear, she can only cry as she stands there, unable to move. At that moment, Serena steps in without hesitation. She pushes Rosemary out of the way and takes the slash herself. Serena reminds him that this is exactly why she warned him not to draw his sword in anger, her disappointment evident. Rosemary screams hysterically at the sight, while Heinrich remains frozen, unable to process what he has done. Serena continues to stare at him sharply. Then, from behind, Evan arrives and immediately restrains his younger brother. With a firm tone, he announces that the king is already aware of Heinrich's actions and that he must be judged at the royal palace. Evan drags him away by force, while Heinrich keeps glancing back at Serena with visible concern. Evan lets out a quiet sigh, unable to understand how things escalated to this point, that his brother would lose control and draw a sword on Rosemary. Yet as they leave, Heinrich begins to cry, his guilt obvious after injuring Serena. Evan is briefly surprised, then gives a faint smile, acknowledging it while remarking that his brother is truly foolish. Afterward, Serena suggests that Rosemary should be taken home and asks a royal knight to handle it. From the crowd, Skarnet rushes toward her in a panic and grabs her hand, pulling her toward the infirmary. Serena is caught off guard, having believed Skarnet disliked her, and she thinks the injury is not serious. However, Skarnet responds sharply, saying this is not the time to talk about liking or disliking someone. The reaction leaves Serena stunned. Once again, she is reminded of how far people can go for the sake of love, of the jealousy, anger, and even the worry they feel for those they claim not to like. She does not fully understand it, yet, as Skarnet urgently pulls her along, a strange feeling stirs quietly within her heart. After everything settles, Tigor lets out his frustration, admitting his heart nearly stopped when Serena stepped in to protect her sister. Serena simply shrugs it off, insisting there was nothing to worry about, before walking back into the house. Amaryllis rushes to greet her, her face pale with fear, clearly terrified that Serena might be seriously hurt. In her panic, she stumbles over her words, and Serena calmly reassures her that it was only a minor cut. Then, with a hint of hesitation, she asks if her mother was truly worried about her. Amaryllis lowers her head and apologizes, admitting she never knew how to face Serena and kept running away. The next moment, she pulls Serena into a tight embrace, expressing her genuine relief that her daughter is safe. To Serena, the injury feels insignificant, and protecting Rosemary had simply been the more practical choice, as dealing with her death would have caused far greater trouble. Yet she does not expect the warmth of a mother's embrace to feel so comforting. For a brief moment, she allows herself to enjoy it. After that day, Rosemary remains in shock, locking herself in her room and refusing to come out, while 𝕠𝕠 returns home in anger after hearing what happened. ℕ𝕒 is placed under house arrest until the matter is resolved, and as time passes, the noise around the incident gradually fades, leaving things calm once more. That calm does not last. Standing in the courtyard with her arms crossed, Serena is informed that the royal concubine wishes to see her. Tigger steps forward, protesting that such a sudden summons is disrespectful, especially when Serena is about to leave for school. However, refusing a royal summons is not something Serena can simply do, and she knows she cannot avoid it. Despite the unease settling in her chest, she has no choice but to go. At the royal palace, she meets Hera, ℕ𝕒's mother. Hera immediately asserts that as a noble, Serena should understand what is expected of her, especially when it comes to not bringing shame upon the royal family. Serena quickly realizes that Hera wants 𝕠𝕠 to withdraw his charges against ℕ𝕒, even though it was clearly ℕ𝕒's actions that caused public embarrassment. Calmly, Serena states that there must be some misunderstanding and makes it clear she has never disgraced the royal family. Hera's anger rises at the implication that her son is at fault, but Serena remains composed, pointing out that such judgments are for the king to decide, not them. Enraged, Hera orders her to be silent, then mocks Serena's upbringing, suggesting her behavior stems from being raised in a family that adopted a commoner. Serena does not react as expected, and instead agrees that her mother's decisions are indeed unusual. With a faint, cunning smile, she counters that ℕ𝕒's behavior is far stranger, as a second prince who casually oversteps his authority. Provoked, Hera throws her hand fan at Serena, who effortlessly avoids it. Hera continues shouting, warning that the Violet House will face consequences for opposing the Heinz House, her own powerful family. Serena is well aware that her mother is not socially influential, but her father's business spans across nations. The Violet House holds strong ties with merchants and foreign nobility, making it far more powerful than it appears. Hera's failure to grasp something so simple almost amuses her. Still, Serena only smiles politely and remarks that she looks forward to seeing just how mighty the Heinz-Markov household truly is, before leaving without another word. Behind her, Hera, furious and flushed with anger, orders a servant to contact her parents immediately, determined to have the Violet House crushed into dust. Upon returning home, Serena collapses onto her bed, exhausted. Tigger brings her tea in an attempt to comfort her, but she suddenly sits up and asks him if he has ever been in love. The unexpected question causes him to drop the tray, freezing in place, before nervously asking if she has fallen for Prince Evan. Serena denies it, though she admits recent events have made her curious. She reasons that as the son of a concubine, ℕ𝕒 would logically see Rosemary as a convenient pawn to gain access to the ducal family's power, which explains why the engagement had been maintained despite his lack of affection. Yet, his sudden decision to annul it over Rosemary bullying Serena feels inconsistent, especially since he has never gone that far for any woman before. Serena begins to consider the possibility that ℕ𝕒 may truly be in love, and if that is the case, she questions whether such sacrifice is necessary, whether love could truly hold more value than the wealth of an entire kingdom. In response, Tigger kneels before her and gently affirms that it can, adding with a soft smile that no amount of riches could ever compare to her worth. The answer catches Serena off guard. She wonders if that means Tigger loves her as well, reflecting on the bond between a person and a loyal guard, something that can grow incredibly strong. She thinks that perhaps one day she might fall in love too and come to understand it. But for now, the idea feels distant and almost amusing. Love is not something she needs to survive. A few days later, while reading the newspaper, Serena comes across news that the distribution of goods to the ancestral lands of the Heinz family has completely stalled. It is clearly maybe Hera's attempt at retaliation against her. 𝔸𝕟 questions whether it is true, but with 𝔸𝕤𝕠 still away, nothing has been confirmed. Suddenly, a knock comes from the window. Serena turns to see 𝔸𝕉 slipping inside with ease. 𝔸𝕉 explains that she has come with an urgent message from Rick and asks if Serena has read the newspaper. She reveals that Hera tried to pressure the Violet House by ordering merchants to cut ties with them. However, the merchants refused, as trust is the foundation of their trade, and even an order from the royal concubine is not enough to make them betray the Violet House. They even warn that if the pressure continues, they will sever ties with the Heinz family instead and correct the situation themselves. Upon hearing this, Hera panics, especially when her own father forces her to give up, knowing they cannot survive without the merchants. The realization that a royal concubine could be defied so openly fills her with fury. Serena quietly concludes that her assumption was correct. In trying to destroy the Violet House, Hera has only pushed her own family toward ruin. 𝔸𝕉 then delivers the most critical part of Rick's message, unable to pressure the Violet House through her usual methods. Hera has grown desperate and furious. That desperation has driven her to order an assassination on Serena. Rick and 𝔸𝕉 both suspect that the assassin will make their move that very night. That night, Serena and 𝔸𝕟 prepare themselves. Serena cannot understand how Hera could resort to something like this, wondering if the woman truly believes that her death would make the lawsuit disappear. Still, she admits that such behavior is not surprising. Concubines who call themselves chosen elites often eliminate anything that stands in their way, and their vicious way of thinking is no different from those in the underworld. Outside the window, 3 assassins linger in the shadows, whispering among themselves, uneasy about why it takes 3 of them to deal with a single girl. Serena calmly tells 𝔸𝕟 not to intervene, dismissing them as nothing more than small fry. Moments later, the assassins quietly slip in through the window. The first one dies instantly, a blade thrown straight into his head before he can react. The remaining 2 freeze in shock as Serena greets them casually, her lips curling into a faint smile as she bids them farewell in advance. She removes a decorative feather from her hair and flicks it forward, revealing a hidden needle that pierces one of their throats, sending him collapsing to the ground. Without hesitation, she steps forward and slashes the last assassin with precision, the attack deep enough to end his life on the spot. Serena exhales in irritation, mocking Hera's pathetic attempt at assassination as she looks down at the bodies. Mercy has long since left her. She cannot even remember when she first started killing, nor how it once felt. Now, the smell and warmth of blood only leave her numb and faintly uncomfortable at the same time. She assumes it is simply because it has been a while since she last killed. When 𝔸𝕟 asks what should be done with the bodies, Serena walks over and calmly separates their heads, deciding to send them back to their sender as a message to Hera. Not long after, Rick arrives, clicking his tongue in admiration at the scene. Serena hands him the bundled heads, asking him to deliver them, and Rick awkwardly laughs before snapping his fingers. Several figures immediately slip in through the window, moving with remarkable speed. They are known as the Cleaners, specialists who dispose of evidence and erase any trace of bloodshed. Within moments, the room is spotless, as if nothing had ever happened. Rick quickly takes his leave, cheerfully exiting through the window once again. 𝔸𝕟 then approaches with a towel and a change of clothes, asking Serena to sit while he carefully wipes the blood from her skin. As Serena sits on the bed, 𝔸𝕟 gently cleans her, treating her with a care that feels almost fragile. When he finishes, he mentions that he will throw away the cloth, as it has been stained completely red. Serena glances at it and quietly agrees, her thoughts drifting. She reflects that if she had not survived back then, she might have ended up like that discarded rag, something filthy and worthless, thrown away without a second thought. Remembering 𝔸𝕟's usual smile, she begins to wonder what he would do if she were the one to disappear someday. If he treats her so gently now, would he simply return to his ordinary life without hesitation? The thought leaves a faint discomfort in her chest, and her expression darkens slightly. 𝔸𝕟 immediately notices, startled by the change, and anxiously asks if something is wrong. Serena, however, chooses silence, unwilling to voice what she is feeling. The next morning, at Hera's residence, a servant enters her room and lets out a horrified scream. Hera wakes abruptly, her eyes widening in terror at the sight before her. 3 severed heads, still stained with blood, have been placed on her bed. Her body trembles as she realizes they belong to the very assassins she sent to kill Serena. Confusion overwhelms her. According to her investigation, Serena only had a single servant and no guards. Could Serena have killed them herself? And even if she did, how could she have placed the heads inside her room? The knights rush in at the sound of her scream, while a trembling servant suggests she move to another room. As Hera shifts, one of the heads rolls near her feet, sending a chill through her entire body. Unable to bear it, she decides to bathe immediately. Her body refuses to stop shaking. Only a small part of her was touched by the blood, yet it feels as though she has been completely drenched in it. When a knight cautiously asks if she has any idea how this could have happened, Hera explodes in anger, ordering the heads to be disposed of at once. Rising abruptly, she harshly commands the servants to attend to her and helping her bath properly. Her fury burns hotter than ever, directed entirely at Serena. She swears to herself that she will never allow that girl to win. In the end, the engagement between Rosemary and Heinrich is officially annulled a month after Serena's meeting with Hera. When 𝔸𝕤 returns, his fury is directed not only at Heinrich, but also at his mother's actions, to the point that the king himself is forced to bow and apologize publicly. With the matter finally settled, 𝔸𝕤 appears relieved to leave the engagement behind. However, the consequences are severe. Hera and Heinrich's standing within the royal palace drops significantly, and Hera is confined to her room for an indefinite period. Meanwhile, Heinrich is ordered to restore his honor by serving as an ordinary knight. With his belongings packed, he prepares to leave, asking Evan if he has come to mock his foolishness. Evan responds with a serious expression, saying he has no such intention and only came to see him off. Heinrich admits he was joking, but speaks sincerely when he says he will use his time in exile to improve himself, hoping that when he returns, Serena will acknowledge him once more. With that, he departs with a faint smile, while Evan silently watches, his thoughts unreadable. Elsewhere, 𝔸𝕤 argues with Amaryllis, determined to punish Rosemary for the chaos she caused and for bullying Serena. He gives her a choice, to return to being a commoner or to undergo re-education in a monastery. Both options are harsh, though 𝔸𝕤 still offers to arrange work and provide a month's living expenses if she chooses to leave as a commoner. To Serena, even this punishment feels too lenient. 𝔸𝕤 firmly orders Rosemary to make her decision by the next day. The girl breaks down in tears, looking desperately to Amaryllis for help, but her mother can only return a sorrowful gaze before walking away. Rosemary spirals into a tantrum, questioning why 𝔸𝕤 dislikes her when everyone else finds her lovable and cute, and why neither Heinrich nor her father loves her. Serena frowns, recognizing that the problem lies elsewhere, and even finds Rosemary's confidence almost astonishing. In her frustration, Rosemary lashes out, accusing Serena of being the one loved by everyone. Serena can only admit that she does not understand it herself. Then, more seriously, Serena shares her thoughts. She has seen people adored by the masses, yet ignored by the ones they truly wish to be loved by. No one in the world can be loved by everyone. She tells Rosemary that somewhere out there must be someone who genuinely loves her, and that she should learn to notice that person instead. It does not matter whether they are a noble or a commoner. What matters is understanding what truly deserves her attention. Rosemary is left stunned, memories surfacing of the moment she first met Amaryllis, the warm smile that welcomed her, the kindness that brought her into the Violet House. The memory lingers, and for the first time, she begins to reflect on herself. Not long after, Serena attends the hunting festival with Tigr. She finds it strange that many ladies who are not participating are still present. Tigr explains that the event is also an opportunity for noblemen to gain attention by offering the spoils of their hunt to women they are interested in. Soon, Evan approaches and greets her warmly. Serena responds with equal politeness, while Tigr watches him with clear displeasure. Evan asks about Rosemary, and Serena explains that she has chosen to go to a monastery, a place known for its strict discipline, where troublesome individuals are sent. Serena quietly thinks that by the time Rosemary returns, it may already be too late for her to marry, as she will remain isolated from the outside world until her education is complete. Evan then shifts the conversation, mentioning the custom of presenting hunting spoils to a woman of interest. Serena, already aware of this, questions why he is telling her. In response, Evan gently brushes her hair and briefly presses a kiss against it, asking if she would accept his offering should he bring one back for her. Tigr immediately intervenes, roughly pulling Evan's hand away and claiming there was an insect in his lady's hair. The two exchange sharp looks once again, creating a tense atmosphere that feels all too familiar to Serena. After a brief farewell, Evan leaves. Not long after, Skarnet arrives, clearly displeased, after witnessing what appeared to be an intimate exchange. Serena sighs, explaining that they are merely acquaintances and that such conversation is normal. Skarnet remains unconvinced, insisting that their interaction did not look that simple. She warns Serena to be more careful, lest she end up like Rosemary. Two of Skarnet's companions mock the situation, claiming it was inevitable that a commoner should never have been raised to nobility, no matter how pitiful her circumstances were. They describe such people as greedy and ungrateful, taking noble charity for granted without ever expressing thanks. Serena responds by asking if they are referring to noblesse oblige, the supposed duty of the privileged. In her past, she had encountered nobles who treated her the same way, offering help out of pity. She had hated that feeling because it was they who chose to pity her, yet they also expected gratitude in return. With a sharp edge to her voice, she states that of course the poor would not feel thankful, especially when they never asked for help in the first place. Her emotions slip through, and for a moment, even her killing intent seeps into the air before she steadies herself with a quiet breath. Composing herself, Serena smiles, and adds that if nobles truly wish to help, they should do so for the sake of helping, not for gratitude. Even 𝕠𝕠𝕠𝕠 is momentarily surprised by the shift in her tone. As she speaks, Serena recalls Amaryllis, who helped Rosemary without expecting anything in return. Yet even that kindness has led to the tragedy they now face, leaving Serena to wonder what her mother must be thinking. Suddenly, a scream cuts through the air from the direction of the forest. It comes from the group of women who had been picnicking nearby. Serena catches the faint scent of blood even from a distance. Moments later, women come running back in panic. Their faces pale as they cry out for help. From the forest behind them, monsters emerge in pursuit, towering wolf-like beasts and winged creatures resembling bats. Shock spreads through the crowd as they realize the impossible has happened. A sudden monster wave has appeared in the middle of the festival. Not long before the chaos began, Lady Hera's father handed a whistle to an innocent girl. He claimed it was meant as a signal for a surprise and promised to repay all her debts. Without suspicion, deep within the forest, the desperate girl obeyed. The moment the whistle sounded, it drew monsters from all directions, and she was killed where she stood. Back at the field, Serena and 𝕠𝕠𝕠 were left stunned. Monsters were never supposed to appear there, yet they came in overwhelming numbers. Serena immediately ordered everyone to run. The guards were too few, fully occupied with evacuating the nobles as panic spread. Elsewhere, Evan was questioned about why he had given his hunting spoils to Serena. The knight who asked was merely curious. Serena was known as Rosemary's older sister, burdened by a terrible reputation. Rumors painted her as an arrogant and wicked woman, the kind Evan would normally avoid. Yet Evan dismissed those claims. From his own encounters, he knew they were false, likely spread by servants. Once he had chosen Serena as an ally, he began investigating her in earnest. What he found only deepened his fascination. She was extraordinary. She had once stabbed a dog without hesitation when it attacked her, and she had threatened a disrespectful knight with a blade. Every report about her stirred his interest further. The first time he visited her home, she had leapt over a wall with effortless grace, landing as though she had descended from the heavens. At times, however, she carried the silent presence of a seasoned assassin, her movements and even her footsteps utterly undetectable. No matter how much he searched, Evan could not uncover what had shaped her into who she was. Before he realized it, he found himself constantly watching her. Even her irritation amused him, and somehow she reminded him of a girl he vaguely remembered from his dreams. The thought embarrassed him, as it felt far too romantic. His thoughts were abruptly cut off when another royal guard shouted that monsters had appeared at the ladies' tea party venue. Evan immediately ordered reinforcements and medical support, but panic seized him when he thought of Serena. She was fiercely combative and recklessly brave. He feared she would choose to fight rather than flee. Unable to remain still, he rushed toward the field, hoping she was still alive. At the scene, Serena found herself confused by her own actions. She stood protecting Skarnet, dagger in hand, while the other girls had already fled and abandoned her. Serena had always placed herself above others, yet now she was fighting for someone who was nothing but a burden. Nearby, 𝕠𝕠𝕠 struggled desperately against the monsters, just as the knights did. The battlefield had descended into chaos. Women screamed, some wounded, others begging for help. Serena let out an irritated laugh. Turning her head away in a situation like this felt no different from suicide. A massive monster lunged at her, knocking her weapon from her grasp. Tigger shouted in alarm and forced himself forward, barely intercepting the creature's claws before they could reach his lady. Serena understood that even for Tigger, facing such a monster head-on was impossible. Without hesitation, she grabbed her fallen dagger and hurled it. The blade struck the monster's eye, drawing a pained roar. Skarnet trembled in terror, muttering that she did not want to die. Serena snapped at her to stand if she wished to survive. Shaken but desperate, Skarnet forced herself up. Serena exhaled. With Tigger buying time, there was a chance for Skarnet to escape. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if Evan was safe, only to catch herself in irritation. There was no reason for her to worry about anyone else. What happened to Evan should not matter. The same applied to Skarnet. If she died, it would simply be the consequence of her weakness. Serena despised this hesitation. With a sharp cry, she tore the feather ornament from her hair, revealing it as a hidden weapon. Frustration burned through her as she charged forward, convincing herself that she was not protecting anyone. She only needed to defeat the monster to escape. If Skarnet survived because of it, then so be it. She threw the weapon with precision, striking the monster's other eye and blinding it completely. As it thrashed in agony, Serena ordered Skarnet to run. But from behind her, the enraged creature lashed out, ready to tear her apart. Tigger once again rushed forward, wrapping himself around Serena to shield her. Her eyes widened in shock, certain he would die. Her heart pounded violently as she refused to accept that outcome. Yet what followed was even more unexpected. It was Evan who took the blow, his body intercepting the monster's claws as he protected both Tigger and Serena, leaving them frozen in stunned silence. More knights soon flooded the battlefield, swiftly cutting down the remaining monsters. As order was gradually restored, Evan, weakened by a deep wound, admitted that his body had moved before his mind could catch up. His gaze drifted towards Serena, faintly surprised to see such panic and pallor on her face. A weak smile formed as a quiet murmur let out, that perhaps he alone could draw out that expression from her. The idea filled him with a sense of happiness before his consciousness slipped away. The knights hurried into panic, calling for medics, while Serena remained frozen in place. Unaware of it, she clung tightly to Tigger. By all reason, she should have been the one to die, yet Tigger had stepped forward, and so had Evan. The memory of a knight from her past life surfaced, along with the question of what had become of the crown prince who fled. Had that sacrifice meant nothing at all? She could not decide if any life was truly worth such a price. One thing, however, felt certain. She herself was not worth that kind of sacrifice. She held back her tears in Tigger's embrace. Everything that followed blurred together. The situation eventually came under control, and with Tigger's support, Serena somehow made her way back home. Rick was already waiting there, bringing news that ignited a surge of anger within her. That night, Lady Hera simmered with frustration. Serena's survival had not been part of the plan. Everything had been arranged perfectly, with no evidence leading back to her. The only loose end was the monster-luring whistle she had purchased. Yet, even that had been handled through multiple intermediaries. Even if it were discovered, the testimony of underworld figures would hardly be trusted. Though she dismissed the risk, her irritation remained, and she began plotting Serena's next death. A knock suddenly broke the silence as Rick entered, his cold expression catching her off guard. He revealed the whistle and stated his intent to return it. Hera feigned ignorance, denying any knowledge of the object, but Rick calmly explained that those in the underworld were cautious by nature. To protect themselves, they secured undeniable evidence. Because Hera had so easily discarded her pawns, they had confessed just as easily. His sharp gaze never wavered, as he added that the king would soon learn everything, and she would not escape execution. Trembling, Hera realized that the rumors of Rick's ties to the underworld had been true. Desperation took over as she pleaded for her life, promising anything in exchange for freedom, convinced she could at least sway him. Instead, Rick shoved her aside, stating that she had chosen the wrong person to appeal to. A faint smile appeared as he revealed that someone else wished to see her dead. He stepped aside, and Serena emerged from behind him. Hera staggered back, eyes wide in horror, as she faced the very person she had tried to eliminate. Without hesitation, Serena seized her by the throat, expressing regret for not killing her sooner. She mentioned that Evan remained unconscious, and by her own logic, if the prince were to die, it would simply mean he lacked the strength to survive. Yet, for reasons she could not fully grasp, the sight of Hera now filled her with overwhelming irritation. As Hera broke into tears, realization dawned upon her. Serena must have been the one who killed the assassins before. It also became clear that, with someone like Rick cooperating, it was no wonder an assassin could reach her room so easily. Serena let out a quiet scoff, admitting that she might care about Evan more than she'd expected. The thought of someone like Hera laying hands on him disgusted her. Regret consumed Hera as she realized she had crossed a line she never should have touched. Serena's smile widened as she warned her to remember her place. The next morning, Rick delivered a full report to the King of Astra, Rodriguez, detailing Hera's crimes along with solid evidence. The king's fury was immediate as he ordered the captain of the knights to arrest her without delay, while Rick simply observed in silence. When the knights arrived at Hera's residence, they found her sitting motionless on the floor of her room. Her expression was hollow, frozen in terror. She was already dead. Chaos spread throughout the mansion as panic and gossip erupted in equal measure. The news quickly reached Serena. She already knew Hera's body would have been discovered by now. At that moment, Serena remained in Evan's room, with 𝔸𝕟 standing by her side. She could not understand why the prince had yet to regain consciousness. Humans felt strange to her. Some were willing to end lives for their own gain without hesitation, while others, like Evan and 𝔸𝕟, did the opposite. They could have chosen to protect themselves that day, yet they stepped into danger instead. The reasoning behind such actions eluded her. 𝔸𝕟 offered no answer. Instead, he softly called out to his lady and offered her some fruit, reminding her that she had not eaten since the previous day. Rick entered the room soon after, scolding Serena for neglecting her meals and warning that she would collapse at this rate. She turned toward him and quietly thanked him for allowing her to stay at the palace. Rick only laughed, remarking that he had not expected her to care so much about Evan. Serena immediately denied it, insisting they were merely business partners. With Heinrich's engagement to Rosemary already annulled, she had no further need for Evan. Rick's smile lingered as he pointed out that Evan had been willing to risk his life to protect her, proof that she held great importance to him. Serena simply frowned, brushing it off by calling Evan an idiot. At that moment, the prince stirred awake. Though still in pain, Evan forced himself upright, a soft smile forming as he took in Serena's unusually gentle expression. Unnoticed by her, tears had begun to fall. Confusion overtook her as she realized what was happening. She had seen tears countless times before, but only from those she had killed. Feeling them herself was something entirely different. Evan let out a quiet breath and questioned why Serena seemed to know only the ugliness of humanity, reminding her that people were also capable of devotion, even to the point of sacrificing themselves. Serena answered in a faint voice, suggesting it might be because she had never been treated with kindness. Evan murmured softly, his gaze fixed on her as he promised to be as kind as she needed. 𝔸𝕟 immediately stepped in, pulling Serena back and rejecting the offer with a sharp glare. Rick, watching the two men clash over her, burst into unrestrained laughter. A few months after the hunting festival, Hera's crimes were exposed to the public. The royal family denied her burial within their tombs and stripped her of all dignity, treating her as nothing more than a criminal. Her family lost their standing, and her father was executed. Skarnet and her parents came forward with apologies for their past behavior, expressing gratitude to Serena for saving her life. Though Serena still could not fully understand why she had acted as she did that day, she found herself somewhat enjoying her growing friendship with Skarnet. Meanwhile, Evan recovered completely, his injuries leaving no lasting effects, and he was officially named heir to the throne in a grand ceremony held only days earlier. Now, for reasons she could not quite define, Serena accompanied him on a walk across the field. Evan expressed his happiness at being able to spend time like this with her, though he also mentioned that the identity of Hera's killer remained unknown. His gaze shifted toward Serena, carrying a weight that was difficult to decipher as he asked why she had gone so far. Caught off guard, Serena admitted that she could not forgive Hera. She did not fully understand it herself, only that she had been consumed by anger. With a faint smile, she added that it seemed she had grown to like him. Evan was startled, ready to confess that he felt the same. But Serena continued, describing him as something like her favorite toy. She had thought about it for some time, recalling how a child once reacted in fury when a toy was taken away. It seemed similar to what she had felt then. Deep down, Serena did not entirely understand why she liked Evan. Perhaps it was because he did not behave like other nobles, or perhaps it was because he reminded her of a knight from her past life. Even so, she did not believe she valued him all that highly, only that she liked him in her own way. Evan felt a sharp sense of disappointment at her conclusion and questioned how she had arrived at such reasoning. Serena explained that she had once asked 𝔸𝕟, and his answer had made sense to her. The thought alone irritated Evan, who could almost picture 𝔸𝕟's triumphant expression. Serena then requested that Evan never again act as recklessly as he had before. Evan agreed, but only if she made the same promise. She crossed her arms, conceding that she would at least try. Evan let out a heavy sigh, realizing he would need to put in far more effort, while Serena misunderstood, assuming he was referring to combat. She added a quiet note of gratitude for being saved, offering her help in return whenever he might need it. The sincerity of her words caught Evan off guard, and laughter escaped him, so intense that it sent pain through his still recovering body. When he finally calmed, he remarked that he might take her up on that offer. Leaning forward, he moved as if to kiss her forehead, only to be abruptly stopped by 𝔸𝕟, who claimed a poisonous insect had approached. Evan was left in stunned disbelief at the perfect timing. Pulling 𝔸𝕟 aside, he demanded in a hushed voice what exactly he had been telling Serena all this time. 𝔸𝕟 feigned ignorance, offering only a sly smile as he replied that he had simply given her advice, as was his duty to protect her. Though irritation burned within him, Evan maintained a polite smile, which 𝔸𝕟 returned just as pleasantly, their mutual hostility unmistakable beneath the surface. Serena, puzzled, asked what they had been whispering about. Both men answered at once that it was nothing worth her concern. Though her curiosity lingered, it was overshadowed by frustration. One was her loyal dog, the other her favored toy, yet she still could not understand what was happening between them. In the end, she gave up trying and remarked that it was nice to see the two of them getting along, a statement that both Evan and 𝔸𝕟 immediately denied. Back at the mansion, 𝔸𝕠 received a formal proposal for an engagement between his daughter Serena and Prince Evan. Maybe they were reaching out again, drawn by his family's wealth and influence. 𝔸𝕠 could not deny that Serena and Evan seemed to get along well enough, and the prince carried himself with a sincerity that made him easy to trust. There was no real reason to oppose the match. Still, he also knew Serena showed no sign of romance affection, and he don't want to forcing the matter. In the end, he set the letter aside, deciding the choice would belong to his daughter. To him, there was no real downside to an engagement with Prince Evan, yet he also found himself curious about 𝔸𝕟, the young man rumored to be talented and sharp. If someone like that managed to capture Serena's interest instead, 𝔸𝕠 would not stand in the way. Status might become an issue, but he had no intention of letting his daughter be completely confined by it. His secretary admired the thought, though that moment of calm did not last. A second letter arrived from the royal palace, and as 𝔸𝕠 read it, his expression tightened with concern. The message revealed that the infamous troubled siblings from the kingdom of Reinberg would soon pay them a visit, and Serena herself had been assigned as their guide and caretaker. Serena's reaction was immediate and sharp. She protested the decision, but 𝔸𝕠 made it clear this was an order from the royal family. If anything, this could be an opportunity to support Prince Evan and build connections with Reinberg. To Serena, that argument meant nothing. She dismissed it outright, her frustration rising as she pointed out the truth about their guests. Of the three visitors, only Prince Shagard held legitimate royal status. The other two, Ismail and Aisha, were merely the children of a concubine, unrecognized by the court and dismissed by most as insignificant. Drawing from information she had uncovered during a past case, Serena recalled the tangled history behind them. Prince Rein, the sole son of Reinberg's king, had once proposed to Lady 𝔸𝕉, and for a time their relationship seemed genuine. Their union produced Shagard, the first prince. Then everything unraveled. Rein suddenly introduced twins, claiming them as his children as well. Bored of 𝔸𝕉, he had taken Lady Anita, the daughter of a viscount, as his lover. 𝔸𝕉 endured in silence until that moment, but the revelation shattered whatever patience she had left. Rein insisted Anita was more than a mistress and demanded that the twins be officially recognized. 𝔸𝕉 refused, knowing it would ignite a conflict over the throne. Rein brushed aside her concerns with cold indifference, even casting doubt on Shagard's legitimacy, claiming the child did not resemble him. 𝔸𝕉 argued that the boy simply took after her, but Anita mocked her instead, twisting the accusation into a scandal of her own. The humiliation broke 𝔸𝕉 completely. she fell into despair and abandoned the palace, leaving behind her 6-year-old son. With 𝔸𝕟𝕤𝕒 gone, Rain brought Anita and the twins into the palace and treated them as if they were true royalty, all while King Racine was away on an expedition. When the king finally returned, his fury shook the court. Rain was stripped of his position as heir, punished for undermining his lawful wife, and for casting baseless accusations against her. The backlash from 𝔸𝕟𝕤's family had already been severe, and Racine knew it was justified. Within the heavily guarded palace, the idea of 𝔸𝕟𝕤 committing an affair was absurd, something Rain should have understood. The king then summoned 𝔸𝕟𝕤. The boy approached in silence, small and uncertain, and in front of everyone, Racine presented him with a jeweled brooch. The room fell into stunned quiet. The brooch was a national treasure, passed down through generations of kings. Its ruby centerpiece symbolized protection from danger and the promise of victory. By placing it in 𝔸𝕟𝕤's hands, Racine made his stance unmistakably clear. The boy was the sole successor to the throne. Anita protested immediately, demanding recognition for her children, while the twins looked on with quiet disappointment. Racine could not bring himself to order their deaths, so he allowed them to remain in the palace under watch, ensuring they would never become a threat to the kingdom. Having long known this story, Serena could only roll her eyes at the decision. To her, it was foolish to keep illegitimate children out of pity, especially when they carried the potential to disrupt the royal line. The thought of being assigned to care for them only deepened her irritation. 𝔸𝕚 acknowledged her point, but reminded her that judgment should not come before meeting them. Circumstances could change at any moment, especially if anything were to happen to Prince 𝔸𝕟𝕤. Even so, one question remained unanswered. While both kingdoms had agreed to the visit, no one could explain why the twins were included. Serena let out a quiet sigh, knowing she had no choice but to accept the role. Even so, Serena pressed her father, questioning why the responsibility had to fall on her when there were countless other nobles who could take the role. 𝔸𝕚 answered calmly, laying out 2 reasons. First, their family stood apart from the shifting factions within the court. Even though Heinrich's faction had collapsed, that did not mean harmony had followed. Many nobles were still scrambling to win Prince Evan's favor, stirring conflict in the process. Their family, however, remained neutral, one of the few the royal family could still trust. Reinberg was no different. On the surface it appeared stable, but beneath that calm, power struggles continued to churn. The next king might already be decided, yet that did not stop the tension behind the scenes. If their visitors were to grow close to the wrong noble house, Astra could easily be dragged into foreign conflict. Refusing the visit was not an option due to their alliance, leaving them with a little room to maneuver. Serena could not help but wonder if this was a desperate attempt by King Racine to remove the twins from his own court, and whether any proper agreement had even been reached with King Rodriguez. 𝔸𝕚 then revealed his second reason. He trusted Serena herself. If anything went wrong, she would be able to handle it. She was sharp, capable, and far more skilled in combat than most nobles. After hearing of her actions during the hunting festival from Skarnet, his confidence had only grown. Serena stayed silent, puzzled that her father never questioned where she had learned to fight, eventually deciding he simply did not care enough to ask. Still, she questioned why they were even preparing for a possible combat situation, only to be told it was nothing more than precaution. 𝔸𝕚 also instructed Tigger to accompany Serena to school. Normally such a thing would not be allowed, but these were exceptional circumstances. Tigger welcomed the decision, relieved he no longer needed to hide his presence. On the day the exchange students were set to arrive, Serena, Tigger, and Evan gathered for a meeting an hour before their guest's arrival. Evan explained that something about the visit felt off. The king of Reinberg clearly had hidden intentions. Aside from 𝔸𝕟𝕤, none of the visitors were recognized as royalty, yet the twins still carried royal blood. If 𝔸𝕟𝕤 were to die, the throne would likely pass to distant relatives, and there had already been multiple attempts on his life. The situation had spiraled far beyond control. Serena questioned whether King Racine would not provide his heir with the highest level of protection or prepare suitable candidates from branch families as a safeguard. Evan admitted that such candidates would be distant and perhaps deliberately avoided. Serena scoffed at the logic. Capability should matter more than blood proximity. Yet Evan only laughed, amused by her uncommon perspective for a noble, suggesting that the future might prove her right. Returning to the matter at hand, Evan revealed what he believed to be Racine's true plan. The king intended for Ismail and Aisha to cause enough trouble during their stay that they would disqualify themselves as potential heirs. Serena found the idea strange, realizing it meant allowing them to act freely, documenting their behavior, and eventually filing a formal complaint back to Reinberg. Evan confirmed it. The twins would likely behave as though they owned the place, which outside their own kingdom would be a serious offense. Such actions would give Raisin the justification he needed to strip them of any claim. Serena considered it, then pointed out that eliminating them outright would be simpler and safer. Evan dismissed that notion. It would damage the king's reputation, and morally, Racine could not bring himself to do it. The plan, while indirect, carried a cruel logic. For nobles, being cast out held a fate worse than death. In essence, Racine sought to destroy them without bearing the guilt, a method Serena found deeply hypocritical and, in many ways, worse. Evan merely remarked that most people operated like that. He added that Serena and 𝔸𝕟 would also serve as Shagard's guards. Serena objected immediately, arguing it was not a role for a noble lady, but Evan countered that she was far from ordinary. In the end, both she and 𝔸𝕟 had no choice but to accept the burden. An hour later, they stood ready to welcome their guests. Serena introduced herself with practiced elegance, presenting 𝔸𝕟 as her attendant. Ismail responded with a polite smile, introducing both himself and his younger sister. The exchange unsettled Serena and Evan almost instantly. By noble etiquette, introductions should follow rank. Yet Shagard, the highest among them, was ignored. Ismail stepped forward as if he were the leader, and neither the servants nor the knights accompanying them showed any sign of concern. From their behavior, Serena quickly realized the problem extended beyond the twins to their entire entourage. A quiet sigh escaped her. Since when had they become a place for others to discard their problems? Worse still, no one seemed interested in acknowledging Shagard at all, an act that would be considered openly disrespectful in Astra. Before the tension could deepen, Evan stepped forward. He approached Shagard directly and extended his hand. The prince hesitated, surprised, before accepting the gesture. Evan spoke in a casual manner, emphasizing that they stood as equals and expressing hope for future cooperation between their kingdoms. Relief softened Shagard's expression, gratitude flickering through him. Serena understood immediately. This was Evan's response to Ismail's earlier rudeness, a subtle but firm assertion of true status. The twins watched with clear displeasure, their expressions tightening. Back at the palace, Evan advised Serena and 𝔸𝕟 to rest before the evening's welcoming party. As they prepared to leave, Aisha emerged from behind a pillar and approached him with a practiced sweetness. She asked if Evan would serve as her escort for the event. Irritation flickered beneath Evan's composed exterior. The request was improper, and he suggested she attend with her brother instead. Unfazed, Aisha turned to Serena, asking if Evan could accompany her. Serena held no authority to refuse. Taking that silence as approval, Aisha's satisfaction was immediate, convinced she had secured Serena to her side. Evan refused once again, citing the clear difference in their standing, but Aisha showed no sign of backing down. Instead, she shifted her approach, asking if she could address him by name alone. His patience wore thin. He reminded her that his position as royalty could not be ignored, and that maintaining distance was necessary to avoid any misunderstanding. Just as Serena assumed the matter was finally settled, Aisha brightened and proposed a tea party as a way to get to know each other. The persistence was undeniable. Evan could not continue rejecting every request during an official visit, and with visible reluctance, he agreed. Serena immediately decided to slip away from the situation, but Evan caught her by the shoulder, his grip firm, his composure cracking just enough to reveal a hint of desperation. He clearly had no intention of facing people like them alone, and expected Serena, of all people, to handle such personalities with ease. Considering her past actions to Rosemary, the reasoning was not entirely unfounded. In the end, she relented. 𝔸𝕟 quietly suggested a more practical approach, allowing the twins to cause problems freely so that a formal report could be made to send them back. Unseen by them, Aisha observed from a distance, watching closely even without hearing their discussion. The tea party began soon after. Ismail opened with an apology, attributing his sister's behavior to selfishness, though the gesture felt more like formality than sincerity. Aisha stayed close to Evan, clinging to him with deliberate familiarity, while Ismail took a seat beside Serena and spoke endlessly, filling the air with idle conversation. Prince Shagard was nowhere to be seen, and given how he had been treated earlier, his absence came as no surprise. 𝔸𝕝𝕦𝕠 soon shifted the topic, noting how close Serena and Evan appeared, then bluntly asked if an engagement was being considered. Serena responded that such matters were left to her parents, making it clear the question itself was inappropriate. Evan's irritation surfaced as well, reminding him that personal inquiries like that were unacceptable, especially during a diplomatic visit. 𝔸𝕝𝕦 apologized at once, offering the excuse that he was under pressure to find a partner. Evan answered with a polite smile, remarking on the distance between their countries. But 𝔸𝕝𝕦 countered that the distance did not seem so great given their current presence. Evan's reply remained calm, yet edged with meaning, acknowledging the point while hinting that the situation was not so simple. Their exchange ended in silence, both smiling, yet the tension between them was unmistakable. Suddenly, Aisha requested a private conversation with Evan and turned to Serena as if seeking approval. Serena replied that if it came as Evan's decision, there would be no issue. Aisha pressed further, asking if a polite request alone would not suffice. Serena's answer was sharp beneath its composed tone. Aisha, as the daughter of a viscount, could not expect such compliance from the heir of a ducal house. With a faint smile, she advised Aisha to consider her position before attempting to give orders. Aisha responded with equal sweetness, offering thanks, yet the air between them grew just as tense as that between Evan and Ismail. After the gathering ended, 𝔸𝕝𝕦 questioned whether his sister had been too forceful. Aisha dismissed the concern without hesitation. Their time was limited, and she was confident Astra would never assign someone incapable of handling a little pressure, as long as it stayed within bounds. What mattered was understanding the kind of man Evan truly was. His refusal to escort her had been expected, but his acceptance of the tea party counted as progress. Even so, she admitted he was not easy to deal with. Her attempts to sway him through charm had produced no effect, and Serena's closeness to him posed another obstacle. Removing that presence became her next objective, though something about Serena felt unsettling in a way she could not yet define. When Ismail asked if she was capable of winning Evan over, Aisha answered with complete confidence. She leaned into her brother, her tone shifting as she spoke of how easily others fell for her usual tactics, how quickly they changed when faced with calculated affection. Beneath that confidence, however, there was a flicker of disdain. To her, most men were disgusting and weak, though she made it clear her brother stood apart from them. Their ambition was high. Aisha would marry Evan and rise as the next queen of Astra, while Ismail would claim the throne of Reinberg. Together, they would prove their worth and silence those who dismissed them as nothing more than unwanted remnants of the royal line. Clutching the matching earrings her brother had given her, Aisha swore that one day they would stand above everyone who had looked down on them. The two leaned their foreheads together in quiet resolve, certain that in the end, victory would be theirs.